Hello, my name is Charlotte, a 32-year-old woman sharing a recent transformative experience that helped me find peace after a difficult time with my husband and his family. This journey began a few months ago, and while things are starting to settle, I'm still processing the emotional aftermath. By telling my story, I hope to find some healing. Rewind to 4 years ago when I took a big step in my life. I married my boyfriend, Benjamin. We met through mutual friends and spent 3 wonderful years together before deciding to marry. Benjamin was charismatic, always the life of any gathering, caring, generous, and coming from an affluent background with a successful career. His kindness felt boundless, and he loved to surprise me with thoughtful gifts. Our bond grew deeper over our shared love of travel, and my friends were genuinely happy for us. One generous gesture stood out. For my college graduation, Benjamin surprised me with a brand new laptop. I felt both grateful and slightly uncomfortable as it highlighted the financial gap between us. Benjamin, I'm just a student, I'd say, trying to broach the subject. I can't keep up with this level of spending. Let's at least split some costs. But he would just smile, shrugging off my concerns, assuring me that it was normal for him to spoil me just as his friends did with their partners. Eventually, I accepted his gestures, though I always contributed however I could. Once I landed a good job after graduation, I was excited to reciprocate his generosity. We began splitting expenses more evenly, even discussing the idea of moving in together. One day, Benjamin suggested, "Why don't you move in with me? I inherited my grandfather's house, so there's no rent. We can share the other costs to keep things fair." Although I was a bit hesitant, he convinced me it would be best for both of us. With that, we started a new chapter together, balancing our finances in a way that reflected our different income levels. Then came the moment to meet Benjamin's family, who lived far from us. Because of his work commitments, I found myself hosting his family alone. Before their visit, Benjamin warned me they could be judgmental but didn't offer much detail, only advising me to smile and not to take any hurtful comments personally. Hoping for a pleasant encounter, I prepared for their arrival. But from the moment his parents and sister walked through the door, the atmosphere felt tense. Their disapproval became obvious, voiced openly. "So, you're the woman Benjamin's been seeing," his mother Susan remarked, casting a scrutinizing glance around. "I didn't expect you'd be living here. Do you pay rent?" Trying to maintain my composure, I explained, "The house is fully paid for by Benjamin, but we share all other expenses equally." Susan didn't seem satisfied. "Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can freeload," she retorted. "This is Benjamin's house, not yours. Remember that." Her words were cutting, and the conversation only became more uncomfortable. Benjamin's sister, Kelly, wasn't any warmer. She barely spoke to me, instead making pointed references to her marriage to a billionaire, perhaps to establish her perceived superiority. My attempts to connect with her were met with dismissive responses. Throughout their visit, Benjamin offered no support. In fact, he almost seemed to side with them. His parents criticized my spending habits, particularly my purchases of makeup and skincare, labeling them frivolous for someone with limited financial contribution. They seemed skeptical of my independence, and Benjamin had apparently fueled their perception, portraying me as a struggling student when we first met, as if to downplay my growth since then. It was a tough and eye-opening experience, one that made me question my relationship with Benjamin and the dynamics within his family. I had been dependent on Benjamin at the start of our relationship, but his portrayal of me felt exaggerated and misleading, almost as if he wanted to reinforce his family's negative opinions. While Benjamin had indeed supported me financially early on, we had since adjusted our finances to split costs equally. Yet in front of his family, he remained silent, almost complicit in their disapproval, making the entire experience deeply unsettling. When I tried to explain this to Benjamin, reminding him that I had always lived modestly and that any luxury items I owned were gifts from him, gifts I'd often advised against due to their extravagance, he brushed it off. He defended his lavish spending, saying it was part of his social status, as if his generosity was more about his image than about genuinely caring for me. After his family left, I confronted him about their harsh comments, but he dismissed my concerns. "Don't take it to heart, Charlotte," he said casually. "They didn't mean it seriously. You're overreacting." His refusal to acknowledge the problem left me feeling alone in my frustration. 6 months later, Benjamin proposed. Despite my reservations, I accepted, and we began planning an engagement party. agreeing to share the expenses equally. By then, I had started a small business, a project I found personally fulfilling, though Benjamin barely showed any interest. To him, it seemed insignificant, but to me, it represented independence and accomplishment. For the engagement party, I even covered the plane tickets for my extended family to make sure they could attend. But as soon as the celebration began, familiar criticisms emerged. "You shouldn't have spent so much on this party, Charlotte," Susan chided. "You're draining Benjamin's funds before you're even married. At this rate, you'll end up with a backyard wedding." Their biting remarks cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful occasion. Feeling defensive, I spoke up. Yes, the party was lavish, but Benjamin and I agreed on this together. I paid my share, and he was just as enthusiastic about inviting so many guests. However, the criticisms didn't end there. Susan accused me of pushing Benjamin to spend beyond his means, while Kelly insinuated that she knew the kind of person I was and suggested I should have been more considerate. Overwhelmed, I stepped outside for air, only to overhear Kelly and her husband, Mason, mocking me. It felt as though my engagement party was unraveling, and Benjamin, oblivious to the cruelty of his family, did nothing to defend me. As I looked back at the scene, I realized how isolated I felt in my own celebration, wondering if Benjamin's silence and his family's judgment were signs of a larger issue I had overlooked. I found myself unemployed, which painted me as dependent rather than the self-sufficient woman I truly was. My mother, who had raised me single-handedly and understood the importance of financial independence, noticed my growing distress. With a protective concern, she urged me to reconsider the engagement, pointing to the relentless harsh comments from Benjamin's family. After the engagement party, I decided to confront Benjamin about everything that had transpired. He dismissed my worries, insisting that his family was just joking and assuring me that financial issues were irrelevant because he loved me. Determined to take charge, I expressed my desire to contribute more significantly to our finances, including paying rent. Yet again, Benjamin brushed off my concerns as we moved forward with wedding plans. The mounting stress became almost unbearable. Benjamin's parents were relentless, criticizing every decision I made and accusing me of putting financial strain on their son. Their constant scrutiny made the engagement period a living nightmare. I explained that everyone, including my mother, was contributing to the wedding expenses, but Susan harshly accused me of exploiting Benjamin, labeling me a gold digger. Determined to defend myself, I approached Arthur, Benjamin's father. "Arthur, I'm not asking for any financial help. We can fully finance the wedding ourselves," I assured him. Despite my efforts to clarify, Kelly continued her sharp critiques, especially targeting the cost of my wedding dress and makeup. This entire experience underscored the stark differences between my values and Benjamin's family's expectations, forcing me to deeply reconsider our future together. Even though I carefully explained that my mother had covered many of the wedding expenses, the ceremony itself went smoothly. However, the reception was tainted by Susan and Arthur's relentless criticisms. They accused me of mismanaging their son's finances, completely disregarding my attempts to explain and defend my actions. Their unwavering determination to tarnish my reputation left me feeling powerless. Choosing peace over confrontation, I remained silent, refusing to let their negativity ruin our special day. A few months after the wedding, Benjamin received a significant promotion at work. Eager to celebrate his achievement, he planned a grand family dinner, and I was excited to make the occasion even more memorable. I volunteered to cover the entire event, expressing to Benjamin how proud I was and my desire to create a perfect evening for him. I explained that my business was thriving and that I had access to resources from a trust fund set up by my maternal grandfather. With great care and attention to detail, I organized the dinner, hoping to showcase my support and love. However, when Benjamin's family arrived, it was immediately clear they were displeased. Their disapproval was palpable, even as other guests reacted positively to the celebration. When it came time for speeches, Susan took the floor with a commanding presence. "Thank you all for joining us to celebrate my son's promotion," she began. "He's worked hard and deserves every bit of his success. Unfortunately, it seems his luck doesn't extend to his choice in partners. It's quite sad that he has tied himself to someone who many would label a gold digger." Her words hung heavily in the air, instantly shifting the atmosphere from joyous to tense. The discomfort was unmistakable, and I could feel the eyes of the guests on me, judging and whispering. Despite the hurtful remarks, I maintained my composure, refusing to let their negativity overshadow the celebration. Benjamin, however, seemed oblivious to the animosity directed my way, further highlighting the disconnect between us and his family. As the evening progressed, the tension remained thick, making it clear that Benjamin's family's disapproval was far from over. Their harsh judgments and unfounded accusations continued to cast a shadow over what should have been a proud and happy moment. This relentless negativity forced me to confront the reality of my relationship with Benjamin and the challenges that lay ahead in navigating his family's hostility. The weight of Susan's words hit hard, yet I stayed composed, choosing silence over reaction as she continued. Had he seen her true nature sooner, she said, her voice dripping with disdain, perhaps he wouldn't be burdened by her excessive lifestyle. She swept her gaze around the room, her message clear and cutting. From the engagement to this dinner, it's obvious to everyone that his wife's extravagance has been nothing but a drain. Despite the sharpness of her critique, I remained calm, knowing that responding would only seem to validate her baseless claims. Then, with a smug satisfaction, Susan added, "Fortunately, we had the foresight to ensure Charlotte signed a prenuptial agreement. At least some of his assets are safeguarded." She sighed with mock relief. "It's a blessing that my son chose someone who can, at the very least, maintain the facade of a trophy wife." To my shock, Benjamin didn't refute her words. Instead, he nodded along. "I can barely spend on myself anymore," he complained, casting a regretful look my way. "Maybe I made a mistake." Hurt and stunned, I finally spoke. "Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with hurt. Benjamin's response was biting. "Your lifestyle," he said coldly, "has been damaging to my bank account." Taking a deep breath, I decided to confront the accusation directly. "Since everyone here seems to believe that I'm a gold digger, maybe I should show you my bank balance," I declared. "I'm financially independent, and I don't need anyone's money." My statement was met with silence and disbelief, but I continued. Susan's gaze narrowed. "Did you steal my son's money?" she accused. To my shock, Benjamin added, "She must have taken it somehow." Holding my composure, I replied, "I don't need to steal from your son. I earn my own income, and I recently accessed a trust fund left by my grandfather. I was planning to use it to buy us a bigger house as a surprise, but under these circumstances, that seems unnecessary now." Benjamin looked at me, missing the tension entirely. "We could still get the house. It would be a wonderful gift." But I was resolute. "This is not happening," I said firmly. "Your family has insulted me for too long, and you've never once defended me. You've let these false assumptions continue." Benjamin brushed it off, claiming, "You're overreacting." But this time, I had finally reached my limit. I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. "No, I'm not overreacting," I said, breaking the silence. "Everyone here knows exactly what your family has been saying about me." The room fell quiet, the weight of my words hanging heavily. This was the moment I made it clear. I could no longer tolerate the continuous lack of support and respect from Benjamin and his family. In that moment, surrounded by a sea of guests at our engagement party, the accumulated weight of years of disrespect finally broke me. I reached my breaking point, realizing that I couldn't endure the toxic environment that had tainted my relationship with Benjamin any longer. With unwavering clarity and determination, I turned to him and said, "I want a divorce." As Benjamin stumbled over words of protest, my mother stepped in firmly. "You've never defended my daughter," she stated, her voice calm and resolute. "It's time she leaves this toxic relationship for good." Without another word, we left the party, the murmur of shocked guests behind us. My decision was final. My mother's unwavering support closed this painful chapter in my life. That night, I returned to our shared home, packed my belongings, and ignored Benjamin's calls. I muted my phone and sought refuge at my mother's house. The very next day, I contacted my cousin, a lawyer, to begin the divorce proceedings. With a prenuptial agreement already in place, I knew it would be a straightforward process that would safeguard my assets. But things escalated when Benjamin and his family showed up at my mother's doorstep, demanding to speak with me. My mother, ever the pillar of strength, instructed them firmly to leave. Meanwhile, Benjamin's messages swung wildly between tearful apologies and unsettling threats, all of which I documented. If necessary, I was prepared to seek a restraining order. At one point, he even tried to confront me at my office, but security escorted him out after I alerted them. This incident only reinforced my resolve. I decided to step away not just from my relationship but also from my job. My thriving business meant I no longer needed the position, and I was ready to prioritize peace and dignity over wealth. I handed in my resignation that day, determined to move forward. A week later, I served the divorce papers to Benjamin at his workplace, only to learn that he'd already heard about my resignation. Former colleagues informed me that he continued to reach out, sending flowers and gifts to my mother's house. But I remained resolute, fully committed to starting anew. With my mother's unwavering support, I found a new refuge, a quiet home in a neighboring state where I could start fresh, free from the shadows of my past. As I awaited the finalization of the divorce, the judge expedited the proceedings thanks to our clear prenuptial agreement. During the 6 months of our separation, I took time to regroup and mentally prepare for the next chapter. I settled comfortably into my new home, changed my phone number to break contact with Benjamin, and began to savor the tranquility and independence of my new life. Occasional updates trickled in, revealing that Benjamin's life was unraveling. He blamed his parents for our divorce and struggled professionally as colleagues distanced themselves and his superiors frowned upon the drama he brought to his workplace. His parents made things worse by spreading baseless rumors about me, but thankfully, these falsehoods didn't gain traction. In stark contrast, my life flourished. I threw myself into expanding my business and embraced the freedom and possibilities that came with my newfound autonomy. Slowly, I began to socialize again and cautiously stepped back into the dating scene. Though Benjamin's behavior had left scars, I remained optimistic, hopeful that I could heal and eventually find someone who would truly value and respect me. The hardship I endured because of Benjamin's actions had caused me immense pain, but it had also forged a newfound strength within me. Moving through and beyond these challenges propelled me into a future brimming with opportunities and personal growth. I now look forward to what lies ahead, confident in my resilience and clear on what I want in relationships and in life itself.